Okay, so this video is going to be a little bit controversial, even though it probably really oughtn't to be. So, I think in life people ought to be able to make choices about their musical instruments without other people getting angry and jumping all over them. And in the world of guitars, I guess there are two really super major manufacturers, and those two really super major manufacturers have two really super major models. They have other models too, but they have other models. I personally have both of those, and I see the place for both of them. And I can see why one type of guy might choose one over the other, but they both have their place. And they have some key differences that make them feel and sit very differently with different people, as well as them have a very different kind of look. So I think we could explore that in this video, and those people that don't like the other choice for some reason can maybe understand what other people are seeing in it, and I guess we can discuss those manufacturers and various sort of good points and bad points, and the sort of the way the internet's treating them at the moment and all that type of stuff as we go along. So enough waffle from me, let's look at some guitars. Okay, so here's contender number one. Yeah, that's right, folks. The beloved Strat. Doing what it's best at. Delivering a bit of single coil spank. So we'll take a look at this in detail and see what that's all about. And here's the other one. Ah, yes, Gibson Les Paul. Doing what it's known for. Big ballsy rock sounds. Cool. So now we'll go into a little bit more detail about what's what with these guitars and why they're renowned for the jobs that they do, etc, etc, etc. But I won't be amplified, we'll be looking in detail at the guitars. Okay, so I think a lot of the reasons for the allegiance that one player may have to a particular guitar over another, or the root of it, may be in identification, a preference, like identifying with certain players who are associated with a particular model, maybe part of what draws somebody to one or the other, but also the types of tones that come out of them and the aesthetics. But there are key physical differences, so let's explore some of those. Yeah, so the first and most, I suppose, obvious, maybe it delivers the most difference in feel, is something called scale length. So what that is, that's the free length of the string between places where it touches the bridge and the nut. So on a Strat, it is about 25.5 inches, which is about 640 something millimeters. So that's that. So that's longer distance there. Does that translate into different feel? What else have we got? Another really key difference is the way the thing is constructed. So a Strat, of course, has the bolt-on neck. Now, according to science, that doesn't really make very much difference to sustain. Although when it comes to glue-in necks, people like to rave on about long tenon neck joints as opposed to shorter ones. Another really key difference for me is how the Stratocaster is designed for manufacture. So aside from the bolt-on neck, which means that the bodies and necks can be manufactured on simple jigs and simply screwed together, and there's no glue up time or anything involved. In fact, there aren't any glue joints on a Strat. Also, notice this. Here's a neck joint. The neck travels up towards the headstock. Notice how the headstock is perfectly flat and it's in the same plane as the neck. This is very economical in terms of material, and this neck is made of maple, which is quite inexpensive really as woods go. It's good, don't get me wrong, but it's quite inexpensive. And I mean, this is nice maple. It's got a little mild flame to it. I don't know if that's coming out on camera. Get a pretty straight grain, no knots or anything silly like that. I've got a Squire that's got a knot in the neck. You just wouldn't, would you? Another detail about these is the neck is one piece. In order to fit a truss rod, a channel was routed on the back and filled in with this piece of walnut, I believe. Okay, and then we've got the body. I think the body on this one may be ash, but they can be other things. And the way that's made, so just one slab. Big route, this makes a big change to things. Big route out of the back to accommodate the springs for this. So a vibrato. When Gibsons have a vibrato, typically the springs and whatnot are external, but the Strat has a spring cavity underneath where the pickups sit. Again, for electronics, audio electronics and pickups and whatnot are assembled onto this cover, and things are routed out of the body underneath, like large areas for the electronics and pickups to sit in. They're all assembled onto this scratch plate, and the scratch plate is screwed onto the body. That's how these things are made. So they're very much designed for manufacture. I've looked into the prices of these things when they were first launched, and surprisingly enough, the Strat and a Telecaster were never an economy option, even though they were very much designed for manufacture. Very interesting. And very key tonal difference. Usually, and always, Strats are equipped with a trio of single coils. This one's like a fancy Strat Plus from the 80s, so these are lace sensors, which were all the rage back then. And it's got all kinds of like stupid updated hardware and whatnot on it that people liked back in the 80s. So that's that. Strat. Good stuff, like, you know, really aesthetically pleasing guitar. Probably if you walked up to most people and asked them to draw a quick sketch of a guitar, what they came up with would probably, an electric guitar at least, what they would draw would probably most likely resemble a Strat. Good stuff. Now let's look at the other flavour. Ooh. So, one of the most notable differences between a Strat. I'm going to change the camera angle a little bit. Let's push you. Oh my god, push you up, 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 up. Okay, there we go. So, yeah, as became immediately apparent when I grabbed this thing off its stand, one of the most notable differences between a Les Paul and a Strat is the weight. I'll weigh these in a minute, I guess. Yeah, so a Les Paul is a weighty old piece of kit. They're made out of mahogany. Some of the 70s and maybe 80s ones may have had maple necks, but the bodies are mahogany. Some Les Pauls had solid mahogany bodies too, but most of them have a mostly mahogany body with about a sort of 1/4 inch thick maple cap on the top, and that's what this one's got. So this one's got mahogany body, solid mahogany body, maple cap on the top, and a mahogany neck. And the neck is one piece, so there's no joins in the neck. The neck is set and glued into the body. There's the neck join externally there, but there's a tenon extending inside. And this is a ritzy Les Paul. I mean, there are Les Paul standards that are obviously worth tons more than this, but as far as styling goes, this is a ritzy Les Paul. So it's a Les Paul custom, so the fingerboard on this one is ebony. They're often rosewood, very occasionally maple, again, sort of 70s thing, I think, sometimes being maple. And the way these fretboards are made, the neck is made out of mahogany. The fretboard isn't fitted, and the fretboard is made like separately. A channel was routed out down the centre of the neck, and a truss rod is put in that way, and then the fretboard is glued on afterwards. Bound in this case. Some Fenders are bound. It's very rare, but many Gibsons are bound. This one's been refretted, so it doesn't have a trademark feature that Gibsons often have, which is nubs. So that's plastic. So the binding is put on after the frets are fitted to the fretboard, and a technique that Gibson use is to form the binding around the edges of the frets, so you get like a really smooth, comfortable feeling fret edge. But very often when Gibsons are refretted, the option will be taken. It's cheaper, it's more convenient, it's easier just to sand all the nubs off and then fit frets with the tangs underneath nipped, so the fret ends can sit over the binding. It's just much easier. It results in a slightly different look, but it's not a big deal. This one doesn't have pickup covers on it. They often do. This one also has nickel hardware, chrome hardware, which is kind of unusual. But yeah, principal difference really in feel is that the scale length is a good deal shorter. I'll measure that and show you that. I have to move you to do that. Okay, so remember we measured the Strat and the scale length, so that's the free length of the strings between the bridge and the nut. So you measure from the takeoff point at the bridge to the sort of landing point, if you like, on the nut, and it was like 25.5 or thereabouts. So let's check out Gibson, see what we've got there. Oops. Yeah, so right at around 24 and 3/4, or about 630 millimeters, thereabouts. A shorter scale length requires less tension to come up to pitch for a given string diameter. So you will find on a shorter scale length guitar that bends are a little easier, and allegedly, tonally, there will be some more punch, but of course these guitars are so vastly different, it's hard to tell, but certainly feel is very different. Feel is there. They feel very different. Both great, but different. So that said, let's talk about the other differences. So scale length is different, but as you can see, they're really different in the way they're constructed. So this is quite ritzy in terms of appointments for a Les Paul, in that it's got headstock binding, ebony board with pearl block inlays and all that stuff. I refinished it when I was younger. Shh, don't tell anyone. Yeah, fancy stuff. Solid body, and we'll talk a bit more about that in a sec. So let's talk about materials. I really should have scripted this, I think. I made myself a more comfortable situation to sit in than being sat on the floor. But anyway, that's my problem. So the neck, again, is all made from one piece of wood, in this case, like the Strat. However, what's different about it is the join, instead of being bolted onto the body, it's glued in, so there's a tenon on the neck, like a precision fit joint. The headstock is not straight and in the same plane as the rest of the neck. It's angled back at about 17 degrees, which is great because it gives you a nice downward tension across the nut, and it's really even because the whole headstock is doing that. Brilliant. A lot of people complain about Gibson tuning stability. There's a damned idiot called Darryl Braun who's always talking about an out-of-tune G string. What the hell? I don't know, man. I've been playing a Les Paul for decades. Not had a problem. It's not the deviation from being straight isn't acute enough to cause any tuning stability woes. It's just bloody stupid, that's what it is. Maybe his nut slots are too tight. The body construction is solid slab of mahogany, in this case, with a maple cap. Not all Les Pauls are the same. There were earlier ones that were just solid mahogany, and there were some 70s and 80s, Norlin era, I think they're called Les Pauls, that had maple necks, longitudinally laminated maple necks. But the most usually expected is mahogany. This one doesn't have any pickup covers and it also has chrome hardware, which is a bit atypical for a Les Paul. Notice the way the electronics are mounted to the guitar. They are sat on the face of the wood, not on a scratch plate. So what's happened here is the rear has been routed for a cavity for the controls, and there's a plate, plastic plate there, and the controls are like mounted in the guitar. So like basically with all mahogany, with an angled headstock, one piece, no joints, like this piece isn't scarfed onto the rest of the neck, it's one piece carved. Set neck joint, a cap glued onto the body. So even without all this binding and stuff, you've got a lot more work, physical work and time in terms of glue work, drying times, etc., going into the production of a Les Paul than you have into a Strat. I'm not saying it gives you a better guitar, it gives you a different guitar, but there is that. And I would say, when it comes to what happens on the internet, or what you see on the internet regarding these two manufacturers, the F brand gets a massive pass for everything they do. And this brand, the GE brand, gets beaten up by people who don't know anything. Like, I saw a video from one guy where he was complaining that his binding had some tooling marks apparent on it. Like, what the hell? That is the stupidest thing to be complaining about. The way in which Gibson make their binding on their necks is that the fretboard is made off the guitar. So fretboard is made, the frets are put into the fretboard, and the ends finish square with the sides of the board. There's no fret overhanging anywhere. The binding is then attached to the sides of the fretted fretboard. Then I believe it's formed with scrapers and files, etc., by a person to conform to the edges of the frets, and you're left with these little sort of plastic pieces, part of the binding, covering the fret ends, in line with the fret ends, called nubs or nibs. And this is a very characteristic feature of Gibson, and it's formed by hand by a human with files and scrapers. Like, that's how it's done. Seeing evidence of that freaked these people out, and they had to make a video, and that was to slag Gibson off because they could see evidence that a human had formed the binding. Madness. Just to balance that out, of course Gibson have not necessarily done themselves any favours. I had that whole play authentic thing with the least authentic person in the world telling people to play authentic, and that was bloody horrendous. What a PR dropped bollock that was. But Fender have been prosecuted by the EU for price fixing. Bearing in mind, it's quite clear, if you look at these things, that they are built for manufacture. Leo Fender was absolutely a genius. He took a solid body electric guitar and reimagined it as something that was absolutely designed to be mass produced, knocked out really quickly with economy of materials. Brilliant. And there's often cleverness that goes into the design of a Strat to mitigate some of its shortcomings. Like, here's a detail on this one. If you look very closely, do you remember I talked about the Gibson Les Paul having the headstock pitch angled back at 17 degrees, giving great downward tension on the nut? You don't get that with a Strat, but what you do get with a Strat sometimes is string trees, either one or two, providing downward tension on the strings and increasing that, its break angle is what it's called, increasing that downward tension on the nut, which is good for tone. What this one has, in order to sort of achieve that, if you look very closely, this tuner is markedly taller than this tuner. So what we're attempting to achieve here is pulling the strings a little closer to the face of the headstock to try and get some break angle on them. Very clever. And as I say, string trees, they're very noticeable, but they're also like a clever solution for increasing break angle. So what I'm kind of trying to show you here is that the neck, with its longer scale, projects from the body in precisely the same plane as the body. So, do you see that? The bridge across the pickups to the neck almost at the same height. The neck projects from the body following the same plane as the top of the body. Don't know how successfully we've managed to establish that, but that's the case. Alright, so Les Paul time. So, neck angle. So, Les Paul has a pretty tall bridge, as you can see, and the strings get closer to the body as you approach the end of the body. Basically, this is another thing about Les Paul sort of not being designed for manufacture, I suppose, is the top's actually carved. I don't know if you can see that, it's raised towards the middle, like arch top. Some solid body electrics are like this, but the Les Paul has arch top electric. And as we get towards the neck joint, I'll show you this from the treble side. So, on the treble side of the neck joint, you can see how the body is in a slightly different plane to the neck. See how the neck merges from the body. That tilt or offset backwards is about 4 degrees, 4.5 degrees. It's varied over time. So what this gives you are two very interesting properties. So the first is a sort of tonal thing. You get limitless downward tension on a bridge, as much as you want, which is difficult to achieve with the Strat. Some people do actually shim their Strat necks in order to achieve some backward tilt of the neck. Obviously most people, myself included, are happy with the Strat tone without screwing with Leo's design. The fact that there's not a great deal of break angle over the bridge is part of the sort of lightness of the sound that you get with a Strat. But a key advantage in ergonomics of the Gibson tilt back of the neck is, it's very difficult to show you because I can't get this camera high enough and far enough away from me to show you, but the neck kind of, the guitar just kind of falls around you really, I suppose, because you've got the body of the guitar up against your body, and instead of the neck sticking out straight, which would put this part of the neck, which you can just see in shot, so the 5th fret, it would put it like out about here. Instead it's around here, so it's falling around you. In addition to the shorter scale, things just aren't as far away or as far apart. The guitar just falls around you. I don't know how else to put it. If you like it, you like it. Of course, part of my sort of formative guitar experiences, identification with players and enjoying tones. Of course, I think Jimi Hendrix is bloody incredible. As anyone who's genuinely into guitar would fully acknowledge. But I suppose the players whose music I really enjoyed the absolute most were Jimmy Page. The compositions that he and the rest of the guys in Led Zeppelin came up with are like, I don't really listen to them very much anymore, but really, really heavily imprinted on me. I guess I don't really listen to it so much anymore, apart from a few songs, because it's so like ingrained in me. Like I know every note that's coming, so I kind of don't really listen to that so much anymore. And another band that really made like a big impression on me, completely different to Led Zeppelin, was Black Sabbath. Again, another Gibson wielding guy. In fact, my first Gibson guitar that I ever bought was an SG. I don't know if I'd subconsciously templated myself on Tony Iommi for a bit or something, but yeah, bought an SG. That was my first guitar. I don't know, I wanted more girth and solidity in my tone, so I then got a Les Paul Standard that was pretty good, and I ended up with Les Paul Custom with gold hardware, which I really liked, but it was nearly new, and the gold hardware was like really bloody gold, and it kind of put me off a bit. So I bought this old thing when I was a student, and actually bought it for £400. You could get Gibson Les Paul Custom for silly money back in the old days. It was absolutely shagged. Oh, I should show you. So this guitar had a Kaler on at some point. I don't know if you can see that. Can you see? Yeah, hopefully you can see that. I don't know. I'll have to review the video and see if it comes out. But basically, there's a filled Kaler route between the, well, in the vicinity of the tailpiece and the bridge. Let's try and use this to throw some really stark light on it. So you might just be able to see the edges of the route. So it's already filled before I got it, but as you can imagine, the guitar looked absolutely shocking with a filled Kaler route on it. I stripped all the finish off that was on it. It was absolutely terrible, and I refinished it myself. And as you can see, that was a very long time ago, because yeah, time has done what it does to guitars that I played a lot again. So this is what I called my honesty window, because I left the area around the serial number, so the serial number would remain intact. I didn't touch that area, and that was the kind of colour that it was. So it was alpine white that had really seriously yellowed, and of course it's really seriously yellowed because it's seriously old. Strat, on the other hand, is really good condition specimen. I mean to make some aesthetic changes to it. I really don't like this white pick guard, so I have a black one that I'll fit at some point. But yeah, I love this guitar. It's really sweet. So let's see the neck angle thing. I think I should. Oh yeah, I showed that. Okay, so the final thing to do is to try each guitar in the primary application that the other is most famed for. So we get the Les Paul, play all clean and reverby, and we get the Strat and play all overdriven and Marshall Stacky. There we go. Okay, so try to write some stuff. Okay, here we go. Okay, so I have here one lovely Stratocaster, and it's connected itself up to a Marshall stack and a and there you go, it's showing the limitations of a Strat. You could obviously, I suppose, tweak the amps a bit to give it, but there's a hollowness and a springiness that you get with single coils that, for the most part, doesn't really suit lots of distortion. But of course, if you flip the thing onto the neck pickup, it can sound quite beautiful. So there you go, that's a Strat in the kind of Les Paul application. And that's what I hear quite often when hearing Ritchie Blackmore. It's like you hear him in the context of John Lord playing as well, but if you kind of focus your ear on Ritchie, he often sounds quite bad. He makes a lot of mistakes too, but yeah, I mean, he often sounds quite bad. Right, okay, so now let's try the Les Paul through clean out with loads of reverb. Let's see what we get. Okay, so Les Paul plugged into a clean reverby amp, well, cleanish. Sounds alright actually, you know, but doesn't have the bounce and sort of springy energy that that Strat has in this application. Spank, I think you might call it in that position. That sounds alright, but I've cheated. On this Les Paul, I've fitted a push-pull pot which grounds one of the coils, splits the coils and grounds one of them to cause a little more Strat-like availability of tones. What a cheat. So here's that pickup in humbucking mode. So it's lost its springy spank, so let's switch back to sort of Strat style mode-ish, emulation of. Yeah. And then back to the sort of Strat emulation mode. Got more spank, definitely. So yeah, they can play they can play in each other's territory, but maybe they need a little assistance to cover the bases, and that's exactly the sort of nub of the thing for me, and why I have both, is in each application, one is like notably better than the other. I always gravitated toward Gibson guitars because I guess the look and the feel. When I played the Gibson guitars, I was like, yeah, this feels right. This feels like the weapon for me. But then, as I got into tones and tonality, that's when I started to really understand the benefits of having both. I could really see how to get that spanky, clean sound, you had to do quite a lot of work to a Les Paul, and it still wasn't quite 100% nailing that. So, you know, crack open the bank balance and buy the bloody thing that does the job from the get-go. And that's why I have both, and I can understand the point of both. And I don't see the point of people who are like, oh, you've got a Les Paul, the head start's going to pop off when you turn your back and all this stuff, and your G-string's never going to be in tune. Yes, it is. What the hell are you talking about? Of course your G-string's going to be in tune, unless you're doing it wrong. Nothing wrong with Les Paul. Great piece of kit. Absolutely amazing. And if you want to rock, then brilliant, perfect. And in a live application, I'd probably only use this Les Paul, because if I want single coil tones, I fitted a push-pull circuit, so I can get an emulation of the Strat. But certainly for studio use, for Stratty tones, going to use a bloody Strat. Oh, you can get a look at that amplifier. So the clean tones are coming from that combo behind the Strat. That one there. Totally inappropriate, but you know, that's what I've got hooked up. I do have a really clean amplifier, that Roland amplifier on the top, but you can probably see it's got its insides on the outside. It's knackered at the moment. So yeah, basically that's it. Addressed to no one in particular. Dear folks of the internet, don't be twats, eh? Choose the right tool for the right job, and you will have a wonderful time. And it's cool. Like, if you never ever want to go near a Les Paul, it's fine. But you know, they're great for what they do, and people who love them for whatever reason, good on them. Bloody fair play to them. Like, another thing I would say about Gibson is, when you see this written on the headstock, you know it's a made in USA guitar. When you see that written on the headstock, could be made bloody anywhere, couldn't it? Mexico, Japan. Do they make Fender branded stuff in China these days? I know the Squier stuff's made there. I know the Squier stuff has been made in Japan too. And the Japanese stuff is really good. But yeah, I mean, some of the Chinese stuff as well, surely. I've got a Squier that I got it really cheap, and I've done a load of work to it. It looks really cool. I should do another video actually, a comparison of that with the USA Strat Plus. But yeah, if it's got Fender written on the headstock, it can be made just about anywhere, and usually Mexico, I think. But it can also be kind of tricky to find out, looking at the way Fender describe the guitars, exactly where they were made. They were a little bit sort of shady about it, but yeah, I guess serial numbers and stuff give it away. I think the Mexican ones always start with an MN or something, or start with an M, and yeah, you can tell that way. And I guess if they're made in the USA, they'll brag about it. If they're made in Japan, they'll brag about it, and rightly so, because Japanese guitars are pretty good. Yeah, so I guess that's the end of it. We don't need to hate on one another. Different strokes, different folks, all that kind of thing. Keep on rocking. Cheers, bye.